So here we are for another From the Coach's Desk. Our sometimes deep dive, sometimes basic fundamental concepts of strength and conditioning. I'm here with Jake, and I want to talk a little bit today about the idea of working through a process and not really worrying about the results, which sort of flies in the face, I think, of a lot of the gym culture, where it's all about what your numbers on the whiteboard are. I want to push back on that concept because I really don't think it's constructive. A couple of years ago, this is what I was going to lead off with before I remembered I had to do some sort of intro. A couple of years ago, I was talking with Jake and Todd, who have been my training partners for a decade plus, about like, hey, let's all write an essay about why training should be fun. And we kind of all were like, man, training's kind of not fun, Training's kind of not fun sometimes, I haven't had fun doing it for a little bit, And it really made us think about our own approach to training. But it also made me revisit my approach to the process of training. And what came from that for me was really coming to love the process of training in the gym. And I had recently started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the time, and so really falling in love with the process of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and getting submitted a lot. So Jake, I kind of want to hear your thoughts on being process-driven versus being results-driven, and how that applies to our style of training with our big picture programming.
Well, I think you have to assume that like 95+% of your training time spent is training. It's not assessing. And so, and the idea that it's like, hey, like when I go to the gym, I think you mentioned this earlier, is that we're trying to improve. And you don't look at every single day from the perspective of like, am I better today than I was yesterday? The question is, am I one step closer towards my goal? Yeah. And sometimes just showing up is one step closer, right? Like the process. And the bottom line is, it's like, for every, let's just say 100 days of training, 95, 96, 97 of those days are going to be the process. And then you have those last 3 days, which is the result, the end goal, whether you met it or not. And taking pride in the process, like it keeps you a little more focused on what's happening right now. Versus like, I want this, I want this, I want this. It's like, just enjoy the fact that you're coming into the gym, that you have A, that's free time, B, the physical ability, C, the financial freedom to come in and actually like train your body and move it one step in the right direction. I know, especially, we do a lot of firearms training, and it's really interesting how many people will be on an intro to pistol session, and they take their first shot and they do this. They like drop the gun and they look over to see where they hit, and as an instructor, we don't even look at the target, we just look at them, and they're so hyper concerned, like what happened down there. It's like, don't worry about what happened down there. Like, we need to fix this first, and if we fix this, we focus on the process, the result will come.
Yes.
And so, sometimes we tell people, you've done this before as well in the gym as a coach. You'll have someone doing something wrong, and they're semi-proficient at it, and it's like, hey, like, you could do this better, but understand you're going to have to take a step or two back to make 3 steps forward, right?
Yes.
And so I think the idea is that process is, honestly, it's just, we talked about today earlier, it was kind of like, I don't want to train right now. I was like, but I'm just going to do it.
Yes.
Like, I'm going to walk out, I'm not going to think of something special to do. I'm going to do what's on the board, right? And I'm just going to go do it. It doesn't matter if I want to do it or not. And it's like, and when you get done, you always feel better. Like, that process is just that daily coming in, checking that box, seeing the guys you train with, making it part of your routine, I think is much more important than, obviously, we all want to get better. And the thing is, if you follow the process, the result will come.
Yeah. I've recently come to discover that that in BJJ, techniques fail to work when I don't use them. The process fails to produce results when I don't follow it.
Yeah.
But I think that, I think especially as I've gotten older and the improvements and the recovery doesn't just come so automatically, I've really come to fall in love with the process of training itself. Being in the training room and working through different exercises, knowing that my body can do it and my body can do it healthily, and then I can bring that forward to the next day, you know?
Yep.
Whether or not that next day is training in the gym or training on the mats or wherever, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But every time I follow the process, improvement comes.
Yes.
Every time I try to shortcut the process, or every time I fall out of love with the process, all of a sudden, like, all of my numbers start to dip, right?
Yep.
All of my performances start to dip.
It's not hard. It's really just like any one of our coaches can write a program.
Yes.
And like the thing is, you have to do it. You have to follow it. Like, you know, it's like that. Like just showing up and doing it. And every time that, you know, sometimes like I'll go hunting and I'm out of the program for a little bit, or you know, you'll travel or be doing a lot more jiu-jitsu. And it's amazing how, because now we've worked with athletes consistently for, 5, 6, 7, some 10, 11, 12 years.
Yep.
And you'll see these big jumps in their performance. And what happens is it's when they focus on the process, they train consistently, they don't change things, they don't skip sessions they don't want to show up to. And these are mature athletes that have a pretty high training age. And that's another thing is you kind of have to love the process the more mature you become.
Yeah.
Because you don't have those results of like a brand new athlete. A brand new athlete just shows up and it's like every day they're moving new weight, they're running faster, they're finishing better in the pack. You know, that rate of improvement is so high and so fast and so steep that they're getting that gratification. And then what happens is, like, as you age and mature as an athlete, you start to see this happen, that kind of like law of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I'm just kind of stuck at this spot. And that's just the nature of the beast, right? You know, you have to start really fine-tuning certain things specific to your individual body's, I guess, adaptability to start to see improvement, or change diet, change sleep, change recreational habits, whatever it may be.
So what do you do, Jake, when let's say you know, in September you're going to go hunt, you come back, and you know you're going to have some strength losses, or let's say you don't travel. Like, let's look at two situations. One where you're out of the gym for a while and you come back, and another situation where you start to emphasize another discipline, right? Like, you start to emphasize maybe your pistol work,
Yep.
right? And you come in and you just don't feel fresh to train in the gym. How do you handle the fact that you're not going to be within the same loading windows or the same prescribed loading that maybe athletes who are really dedicated to that program are going to be in?
Well, I think all of us were exceptionally fit at one point, you know, all the coaches here, because our coaches test is very challenging.
Yep.
And I think it just has to kind of stem from the realization and understanding that, you know, people who put more time into something diligently will get better return on time. It's like jiu-jitsu, for example. I've done jiu-jitsu twice as long as you, but you're a better jiu-jitsu guy than I am. So, but you've also clocked in significantly more time in the 6 years that you've done it than the 12 years I have done it.
Frequency in the volume.
Yeah, you know, and so just because you've done something, you know, inconsistently for 12 years doesn't mean that you should be better than the guy who's done it super consistently for 6. And so, you know, we all had, you know, that window of time when, like, training was our life.
Yep.
Atomic just started. We had very, very high levels of fitness. Like, it was very, very, very rare that athletes would beat us at anything.
Yeah.
And then as we age, as our bodies change, as we pick up different disciplines and hobbies, as we start to travel, and it's like, even as a coach, it's like if I'm 42 and I depart for, you know, 3 to 6 weeks to hunt in the mountains, when I come back, why would I be as strong as the guy who's 35, who's done 5 sessions a week for the past 5 or 6 weeks,
Yep.
following a progression like the warrior cycle, and is like on top of his game?
Yep.
It just makes no sense. So I think you just have to have like an honest like perspective of like, hey, why would I be good at this if I haven't been doing it? You know,
Right.
and like you know, on the other side of the equation, if that person who's been in here working through Comanche or whatever it may be was in the mountains with me, he would get completely crushed.
That's a
you
really good
know?
point, right.
Or if you take a break from jiu-jitsu, take a break from the gym, and you're focusing on like a 5 or 6 or 7 day, you know, training frequency in BJJ, and then you roll with another one of the coaches who's been in the gym lifting a lot, but hasn't done jiu-jitsu, and you just fucking school him. Right. It's just like, well, of course I schooled you. I mean, I've trained 6 days a week for the past 5 weeks. That's 30. That's 30 hours of training. How many hours have you spent?
But then again, they're probably going to out-squat me or whatever, right?
Yeah,
of course.
And so I think, as an athlete, when you start shifting your focuses, you have to accept that when you shift the focus, you're still going to be probably better than most, but you're not going to, especially if you were a high-level performer, but you're not going to be as good as the guys who are going to be like fully committed and like following the path.
One of the things that this conversation makes me think of is the tortoise and the hare, and like the lessons that are in that story.
Yeah.
Because it's the hare can obviously way outperform the tortoise, right? But it's not about the rate of improvement or the absolute ability. It's about the depth of commitment to the process. The tortoise was completely dedicated to the process of doing the race, while the hare could care less because their ability natural ability, just like made him like just kind of disregard the entire premise that he could be challenged.
And that's one thing. The older I get, and the more we work with athletes, the less impressed I am with natural ability.
Oh, right.
It's like, oh, you didn't earn this. Like you just came out with like the right combination for this specific endeavor, and you happen to stumble across it. And the same thing can be applied to like the NFL. I mean, like obviously, if you go like to high-level sports like the NFL, like you have to have a good work ethic. But at this point in time, like it's pretty hard to be an average person and just work your way into the NFL. Like you have to have a certain kind of like set of prerequisite physical abilities, fast twitch muscle fibers, explosivity, agility, like all these things. I mean, like perfect example is like if you go watch, a bunch of like 5th graders play a sport. It's like how many 5th graders actually dedicate a significant amount of time to building their skill? They don't.
They haven't even had an opportunity to.
Right? Yeah, and they probably have zero, if any, guidance. But certain kids will dominate because they have natural ability. They're just a little bit faster, a little bit bigger. If they're a year behind, a year in front of their peers.
Right.
And it's like they're gonna be better. A year in the development of like 5th to 6th grade is a huge leap.
Right.
It's a huge leap.
By percentage, think about that.
Yeah. And so I'm much more impressed with someone who has all the wrong ingredients and works really hard and puts themselves up than the guy who just like doesn't care about his nutrition. He fucking parties, he drinks, and he's still a high level performer. Like that doesn't impress me. He didn't earn like that ability. It was just like he just came out with the right ingredients,
Right.
And so some people are always going to naturally be better. Like it doesn't matter if it's jiu-jitsu, it doesn't matter if it's shooting. I mean, there's always going to be just like outliers who can do pretty darn well without putting too much time into it. But I'm always most impressed with the athletes who have driven the process.
Yeah.
It's like when you go see a guy who's a plumber who's like a GM in USPSA, it's like, bro, how did you get to this level, right?
Yeah.
You got these Delta Force guys who are like B-class shooters.
Right.
And this guy's a fucking plumber, and he's a GM.
GM is
a grandmaster. So it's
is that the highest level?
Yeah, it'd be like
there's not like a red dragon.
No,
grandmaster?
yeah, no. It's like you're like a black belt in shooting essentially, right? But it's like that's what impresses me. Like you have a guy he is so committed to the process. And he's training and visualizing and dry firing and watching videos and reading books. And this is just on desire, not, an expectation of your profession.
Right.
He's
driven.
Yeah, it's just like that level of drive. And it's just like, and this the consistency of like train. Hey, wake up 30 minutes before work. Train, wake up, train, wake up, train.
I wonder if they, I don't know if there's a study out there, but I wonder if there is one that shows that people who are more process driven have a greater internal locus of control. Like they believe that the things that happen to them in their life, like they have created the conditions for those things.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's a much healthier psychology.
Yeah. I mean, just sitting there and be like, even today, like I walked in and it was like, it's hot.
104 degrees.
104 degrees in Austin. It was like, I don't want to lift today. I kind of want to coach and go home. But it's like, I walked out there and I started training and I saw awesome people. Got to move my body a little bit, got behind.
You milked the rest period, BSing with an athlete.
Wait, no.
I called you out on that.
No, it was his. He was training, wasn't he?
Well, both
was
of
I
you guys.
Resting?
Both of you guys. Well, he was supposed to be doing a warm up. Anyway, you both were milking a rest period that didn't exist anymore because you're BSing. But anyway.
Hey, training's supposed to be fun, Jordan.
That's true. BSing is part of it. BSing with your buddies. Takeaway, love the process. The results will come.
Yep. Good. Hell yeah.